Guys, welcome to Frame by Frame, Voices of Cinema. I'm your host, Gerald Pagdato, and today's guest is Edmon Rotea, a prominent producer and executive producer known for his work in the horror film genre of the 2022 Canadian experimental supernatural film, Skinamarink. This film was a box office success, grossing in just over $2 million with a $15K budget. Edmon, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Gerald, and thank you, Frame by Frame viewers. It's an honor and privilege to be here today.
Awesome, man. All right, Edmon, let's just get right into it because I'm really excited to sit down with you today and really pick your brain on a bunch of things. And I think today's episode will bring a lot of interesting and a lot of value to people looking to get into the industry, especially on the business side of things. Edmon, well, let's start off with, tell us about your journey into the film industry, into production, and what kind of inspired you on this journey.
For sure. Yeah, it's been a long journey. So yeah, I've always been interested in film and the arts and creative projects. But I never went to film school and got a degree or diploma in film or a formal education. So I actually started off in film probably maybe 10 years ago. Like, I still work as a public sector worker, working in the healthcare system. And I always had a budding interest in film. But yeah, my parents and family weren't necessarily supportive because I come from a Southeast Asian, first generation Filipino immigrant family where we tend to gravitate towards the steadier occupations such as like nursing and healthcare and
doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Doctor, lawyer, engineers, the STEM careers, right?
Yeah.
So my parents were like, yeah, film, it's kind of hard to make a living because it's, feast or famine and you're working from gig to gig and it may not be steady. And ultimately, it's the arts, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk involved. So maybe you should go into like business or so. Yeah, even today, I still maintain a job working with the business unit in provincial healthcare in procurement. But I'm trying to transition more to film production full time. So I started out like a lot of people. I was in my early 30s and I started taking courses at a local arts cooperative called the Film and Video Arts Society. And full disclosure, I sit on the board of directors currently as vice president of this organization 10 years later. So it's been an honor and privilege to serve. But I started taking courses in screenwriting, creating documentaries, producing, and workshops on technical stuff like using the Red Epic camera, RE Alexa, workshops on lighting, whatever education and courses and workshops and seminars I could, participate in because I work a full-time job with the government. And I also serve part-time in the Army Reserve. So it's really hard. It was really hard in those early years to try to squeeze in as much film production, film education training on a part-time basis. But it wasn't until maybe a few years later I started shopping at this company or this store called VizTech. So VizTech, for those for the viewers who are unfamiliar, they're a camera store based in Toronto, but they have locations throughout Western Canada. Yeah. And I started befriending a lot of people, including a gentleman named Kyle Edward Ball. So who eventually became the writer and director of Skinamarink. And we started, I used to hassle him for discounts on clearance items, and I would always ask for a discount. And then at some point, we got on the topic of horror movies, and we both love horror movies. We grew up with them. We would watch them voraciously. Yeah. And it got to the point where I would visit VizTech, not necessarily to buy anything, but to talk to Kyle, and our discussions would last hours until the store closed at 6 p.m. And it wasn't until about 4 years ago, August 2020, when Kyle sat down with myself and another friend, Gerardo.
Okay.
And and Kyle was like, this is COVID. It's been a really difficult time. I think I'm going to take a leave of absence to focus on being creative, because at that point during COVID, we were all confined to our homes and couldn't really go out. And he wanted to do something that he'd been longing to do, because he went to film school at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology at NAIT. And he wanted to fulfill a lifelong dream, which was to write, direct, produce, and create a feature film to prove to friends and family that, hey, I'm educated, I've got great ideas, I can make a feature film too. And I remember Kyle turning to myself and this other friend, and he's like, yeah, can you guys help me? And I'm like, yeah, sure, what's it about? 2 kids trapped in a house, and all the doors and windows disappear, and they're being terrorized by this ghost. And I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I had no clue what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an opportunity to help a friend, because I had helped other friends. A lot of student projects, so short films, medium-length documentaries.
Yeah.
My first documentary that I ever helped on was a TELUS STORYHIVE funded project called The Line by writer-director Anthony Gertz. And that was about a community of waste management workers in Edmonton. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I would love to work on a horror feature film.
Yeah.
Had no clue what I was getting into, but I've really enjoyed the journey. And it's been a journey of struggle, many obstacles, roadblocks, constant rejection, no's, a lot of no's from a lot of people in Canada.
Yeah.
But it ultimately got made, and what really helped was persistence.
Edmon, can you walk us through, or tell me, who are some of your early influences to get into film, or even like horror? Like, how did you start getting into horror?
I think one of my biggest influencers was a local producer, and I'm going to give a shout out and plug for her, Ava Carvinen of Real Girls Media. She taught me one of my earliest courses at the Film and Video Arts Society of Alberta, FAVA. Mm-hmm. I did a course on documentary production, because that's what she specializes and excels in. Documentaries, especially of local figures, hyper-local storytelling. She was a great teacher and continues to be a great mentor. And then she taught me a course on producing. And this was probably over 10 years ago. Oh, okay. And I'm like, this producing business affair stuff, it's pretty complicated and dry. When will I ever use it? And I'm really grateful for taking that course, because, I'm still learning and getting educated, but a lot of those things I learned 10 years ago are more relevant and important now than ever before. Yeah. But other than that, I've had a lot of teachers, mentors along the way, but Ava certainly stands out. And I continue to learn, because this is a very complex, ever-changing industry. So it's not like you can go to film school or take a course and then you're an expert, right? Yeah. We live in a ever-changing media landscape, so it's hard to predict what content people will be consuming. Maybe we'll all have these VR, augmented reality, extended reality headsets, and we'll be consuming content that way, or maybe we'll have content directly downloaded to our brain.
Totally the Matrix. That'd be crazy.
Elon Musk has his Neuralink technology, right?
Yeah, that's just amazing. Have you ever seen that in action? Like, have you seen the YouTube videos?
Not yet. It looks really cool, though.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I watched that. I forget the gentleman's name, but yeah, with the chip in his head, he can control like video games. He's playing video games now.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just like, that's insane. Mm-hmm. And it kind of makes you wonder where, the use of that technology and use cases. There's so many other applications that can be used for, right? Mm-hmm. Like, can you imagine using that chip just to like drive a vehicle?
Yeah, that's right.
Life, eh? Like,
very interesting.
Man. But
fascinating.
So you've been involved, or you started your journey. It's been a while.
Yeah,
I'd say over 10 years now, right? Mm-hmm. Has there ever been a time where you're just like, what am I doing? Should I quit? Or is this the right path? Like, kind of take me back into the mindset of where, I guess, where that journey has led you from before to now.
For sure. Yeah. Because with each and every project, because I've helped on other projects, and I'm not going to mention what project and what name, because the other people involved might be listening to this in the near future, and they'll be offended and hurt. But I've worked on projects that, they started off great. They had a great premise. We were able to get funding from the Arts Council. And then, just because of how the project was organized, especially logistics and communication. Communication is key if you want to succeed in anything in life, whether that's personal relationships, business, film, video project. So I've been on a lot of projects where there's a lot of poor communication or lack of communication, and then the project never really goes anywhere.
Yeah.
Or projects where, I took them on because I was new and I said yes. And then, my heart wasn't really into it. But Skinamarink is one of those projects where, I'm going to try to help Kyle as much as I can. I put some of my own money into the project. There have been projects where, they're not really talking, or I'm just not.
Yeah.
Because with any film and video project, it's a collaboration. And I've been on projects where I wasn't treated very well, or people didn't really seem appreciative of my time and skills on set. And I'm like, yikes, if that's how this person treats me, I don't think this project is going to go anywhere,
and that can be,
or succeed.
That can be pretty tough too, right? And very, I don't know if the word is demoralizing, or whether it's a paid project or a volunteer project, right? You're still putting your time, you're putting your effort.
That's right.
It's part of one of the key words you said is a collaborative effort.
That's right.
Right. So how do you, I guess, for people experiencing that, especially the listeners who are currently on projects.
Sure, yeah.
How do you navigate that? What advice do you have for individuals?
I think with working on any projects, you want to work on something where you believe in the story. That's really important. And with any relationship, it's all about, it's kind of like dating, right?
Yeah.
You want to get to know the person, the people you're working with, and that you like them.
Yeah.
And that they'll fight for their creative vision, and that you all get along, that you're all creative, spiritual warriors.
Yeah.
And that's why I love Kyle, and continue to love him to this day, because we got along well. We bonded over horror films. Yeah. And I'm like, I'll definitely be a creative, spiritual warrior, because we resonate. And I worked on other projects where, you're a very intelligent, brilliant, smart person. You excel in your subject field, but unfortunately, we just don't have that rapport. Yeah. I don't think we're creative, spiritual warriors. So you want to work with people who are just as passionate and are willing to fight for for their vision and story that you want to tell, because that can help motivate other people. Yeah. And convince them to help out on the project.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, some of these projects, especially on, indie film, have smaller budgets, right?
Yes.
And so with smaller budgets, sometimes, obviously the goal is to get it done as soon as possible to alleviate costs. But sometimes these projects can take years or,
that's
months, right? Because of the budget. Now, when a project takes, let's say 6 months or to a year to finish, how do you stay motivated, and how does the team keep motivated and stay within vision for that project? You say, even if the completion goal is a year down the road.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because with I can only speak in the context of Skinamarink. Yeah, that's my only feature film project to date. Because it was a challenge. It was a slog. As I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of rejection. We applied to the different arts councils. Did not get. We got flat out rejected because they don't really fund feature films, especially horror films. We were we weren't very experienced at the time. Yeah. Because we had no other credits other than maybe short films, student films under our belts, maybe some corporate media work.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really hard to get funding or support. Like we were too small we weren't eligible for tax credits. We could have applied to other bigger film funding like Telefilm, but we didn't have a lot of experience. Or we didn't have any what they call letters of interest from broadcasters, so we weren't eligible for stuff like Canada Media Fund, Alberta Media Fund, or various broadcaster funding where you need that letter of support. So yeah, we turned to like crowdfunding, like whatever we knew and what was available, because we had another friend who turned to a crowdfunding campaign. Yeah. But yeah, like I think what really motivated, like what should motivate people is, do you believe in the story? Do you get along with all the people involved, the cast and crew and people on the production team? Because yeah, it's a project that you're going to have to live with for the next 2 years, 3 years, however long it takes to make the film. But I think what really kept us motivated is there was continuous communication and updates, especially from Kyle. So this was all, Skinamarink was done during COVID. Yeah. So, but Kyle would regularly, have meetings on Zoom or Google Meets and discussing updates about the projects, and he would send emails. So he was very transparent. Yeah. Like to the point where we would get contracts and we're like, we don't know, Kyle, because none of us are lawyers or have ever seen a broadcast agreement or distributor sales agent agreement. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, to succeed in any relationship, whether that's personal or working relationship, communication is a key, especially to keeping people motivated. But is it something that you believe in? Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. No, I think I totally agree. That's really important, is to have communication, especially if everyone's whether they are in different cities, different neighborhoods. Yeah. If they don't know what's going on, especially if they are involved in the project, again, they can become very disassociated, pull themselves away, even just mentally, emotionally. And then, time also is a big factor where they might take on other projects because they don't know what's happening with the current project, right? Yeah, so. And with especially with film, TV production, it ultimately it's a gig economy. Yeah, you're moving from job to job. Once one job ends, you're laid off, and you got to find another project. So another thing I like to pick your brain at, because funding and coming up with capital to fund the projects is a big factor for people producing their films, and you have to come up with a lot of creative ways to kind of fund your project. You just mentioned a couple of things like crowdfunding and all that stuff. Can you kind of walk us? How did Skinamarink? Again, I know it's a $15,000 budget. I know that you guys drummed up with, and but like I guess in your experience, like how can someone navigate the funding process? Sure. Yeah. And I'll be honest. I'm still what most people would consider like a novice, junior, maybe producer. So I'm still learning and getting my feet wet. But yeah, for those of your viewers who are listening and they're, they want to make a feature, but they don't have a lot of money or experience, don't despair. We're very fortunate to live in this technological age where a lot of stuff is affordable. Like we have prosumer cameras that are around $1,000, $1,500 that can shoot high quality video better than anything that came out 15, 20 years ago. We have tools like DaVinci Resolve, where you can download the basic version for free and run it on a laptop. Technology like that used to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you would have to hire people that cost several $100s an hour to operate. And now it's something you can download for free. And if you're willing to put in the time and effort, you can learn things like color grading and editing and VFX and other post-production. The tools have certainly become democratized and are more affordable than ever. But yeah, as for funding, like how do you get funding? So with Skinamarink, we started off with, what do we have access to? So Kyle filmed that the entire film in his parents' home, his childhood home, and he's like, okay, I have access to my parents' home. They can give it to me for free.
Yeah.
So we don't have to build a set. We don't have to do location scouting.
Yeah.
We don't have to pay a fee to use that location because it's my family and they're supportive. So that helped. And then for stuff like props, so there's a lot of like Lego in the film.
Yeah.
There's old 90s technology like a CRT television and VCR and old toys like a Chatterphone, which has kind of been an iconic representation of the film.
Yeah.
Barbie dolls and all these other 80s, 90s toys, VHS cassettes.
Yeah.
Everything that you see in the film was all props that were loaned by friends and family. So start off with what you have access to. So if you want to film something that takes place in an office and someone who has an office or maybe someone who lives on a farm and they're willing to let you shoot on a farm. Yeah, just start off, okay, who do you know? Friends, family, your local community who you can get access to a shooting location. And it really helps if you're rich and lots of rich people who can invest. Unfortunately, both myself and Kyle and a lot of members of the cast and crew came from working class backgrounds. Because I'll say it right now, I'm very open about it. Yeah, a lot of people in the arts, especially in Alberta, they're able to do their arts because they come from an affluent background. So they have a spouse or family member who makes six figures.
Yeah.
But me and Kyle struggled. So we turned to crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Because we had a friend, Anthony Gertz of the Line, who he had a successful crowdfunding through a website called Seed and Spark. So they're kind of like an indie GoFundMe geared towards film video projects. Mm-hmm. And so we turned to people in our community. So people in the Fava community, people in the local film video community. Kyle turned to some of his former instructors at NAIT and wrote them letters saying, hey, I'm trying to make my first feature. Can you throw a few $100s our way?
Yeah.
And every penny helped. And I think coming from working class backgrounds, we learned how to maximize every penny.
Yeah.
Every penny was an executive decision on how to spend it. And so we were very frugal. Some people ask, oh, what did you edit Skinamarink on? Did you edit it on a 16 core, 32 thread, latest Intel AMD CPU? And no, Skinamarink was just edited on a $1,200 gaming laptop on sale at Memory Express. What do you have access to? Asking people in your community. And so we were fortunate to have a DOP, Jamie McRae, who he was the equipment manager at Fava. Yeah. And he had a lot of production credit from all the times he volunteered, because if you volunteer for Fava, you earn something called Fava Bucks, which you can apply it as a discount towards rentals. So he was able to get all the camera equipment and everything we needed to make the film.
Gotcha.
Whereas if we had to rent all that out, that would have been like several $1,000. But other than that, there was a lot of funding from the Bank of Edmond, or not a lot, but some funding from the Bank of Edmon Rotea. So I put in some funding myself because I believed in the project and wanted to see it through. And so I think we raised a whopping $8,400 on Seed and Spark, and I'm not making this up. You can look it up. That won't even pay for coffee for coffee break on a large union production.
For sure, yeah.
But know what you have access to, and you don't need the latest and greatest cameras and the most powerful tools. People get hung up on buying drones and Steadicam and gimbals and buying the latest greatest camera and all these tools. As I always say to people, focus on story. Focus on something simple too, like 2 kids in a house being terrorized by a ghost. That's a pretty simple premise. And it's one location.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, spend all this time location scouting or driving people back and forth. So start off with something simple.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to, if you're trying to make a Marvel movie and you have to travel around the world, and you want to film on the latest and greatest cameras. It's great that you have that ambition, but the bitter reality is you want to start off with something simple.
Well, okay, so crowdfunding though, because that's the way majority of projects or people starting off.
Yeah,
in the
that's
film,
right.
One of their options and one of their go-tos, or at least an idea in their mind, is, hey, maybe I should start a crowdfund. What creates how did Skinamarink create a successful crowdfund?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's another great question. I think what really helped is Kyle already had a rapport. He had his own YouTube channel called Bite Size Nightmares. So check it out, like and subscribe. And so what Bite Size Nightmares was short films that Kyle did for no money.
Yeah.
He would either film it by himself or with one or two other friends, and it was really and that was to practice his craft, find his voice, figure out his style for shooting films, figuring out his storytelling technique, and he was able to leverage that because he had like several thousand, tens of thousands of subscribers, not a huge subscriber count, and he regularly communicated. He had a Bite Size Nightmares Reddit or subreddit, as they call it.
Yeah.
So he was engaging people who were interested. And so when it came time for the crowdfunder, he really promoted the film in that subreddit and that Bite-Sized Nightmares community. And he was also known in the local community as Kyle, the video sales consultant at VizTech, who went to Nate. And then, he involved other people like myself. So I started bugging people for, hey, can you give $25? So engaging the community is very important.
So building a community first.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And
thank you.
And he built a community through his YouTube channel, and he started creating content in order to perfect his craft. And then that's when you guys started the GoFundMe and then he engaged them. I see.
Well, one of the things he created out of Bite-Sized Nightmare was a film called Heck, which is still available on the Bite-Sized Nightmares YouTube page, and that's like about a 28-minute film, and that was pretty much the short film prototype for Skinamarink.
Okay.
So I think creating a community around that, and what also happened is because Kyle applied for all these different arts grants, and he got rejected. There was a silver lining to it because he had experience filling out these grants. He was able to reuse the same materials and use it for a crowdfunder. With a lot of these funding, they'll ask for a synopsis, log line, maybe other things like plot and character breakdown. He was able to reuse all that, and he had a trailer developed.
Okay.
To show people, hey, this is the style of the film. This is what I'm trying to go for. So that really helped. Yeah.
Interesting. What about outside friends and family?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to keep diving.
This is good.
Diving into
of
funding
course.
because it seems like to be a very big roadblock for a lot of individuals. Right?
Yes, especially if you don't have a lot of money yourself,
or even if you don't have a network, right?
Yeah.
So, so there was crowdfunding, reaching out to friends and family. Working a job and saving away as well. But what about access or opportunities to, did Skinamarink get anything in regards to like grants, grant funding, tax credits?
Yeah, I can tell you. And I always give a shout out to the same folks. So, we were so small, we weren't even eligible for tax credits. I was fortunate to get a recipient of $500 from the Alberta Media Production Industries Association, AMPIA. So we got a small development grant, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but it was huge because it helped. That was our first a real funding that wasn't friends and family. And it really demonstrated to the community Like we didn't tell people that it was just $500. We're like, oh yeah, we got development funding from Ampia.
Yeah.
So, you know, that gave the project more legitimacy. And yeah, what's really great is Edmonton does have a supportive community. And I think it's just, even if you're a brand new filmmaker, it's good to be aware of all the resources and organizations available. So I mentioned FAVA and how people can volunteer and earn production credit to get rentals off equipment, especially for artists and emerging filmmakers.
Yeah.
So that's one resource. And we have an organization here in Edmonton called the Edmonton Screen Industries Office. I always have to give a shout out to them because they were very supportive of Skinamarink. They had a market access grant that allowed Kyle to attend Fantasia International Film Festival. Yeah. And it's important to network and attend these market events, film festivals, because Kyle was able to not only we had our world premiere for Skinamarink at Fantasia, which is a very reputable, probably the most respected genre film festival in the English-speaking world. Yeah. And that allowed Kyle to meet with other people, other festival programmers, because if you want to promote your film and have audiences from around the world, you have to engage these other film festival programmers. And there's a lot of journalists there from major publications who are watching the film and writing their reviews. Because, you have to get your film into these film festivals because that shows that your film is legitimate. It's gone past these initial gatekeepers, as you know, you can call it. And it's a legitimate film that's worthy of attention, and especially from potential sales agents, buyers, distributors, broadcasters, exhibitors, festival programmers, all these people who exist in the feature film ecosystem who may be allies in helping to distribute and promote your film in the downstream. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But sorry, you're asking about funding. Yeah. So, you know, even these small little grants, because just remember, it's not about getting the one big film grant from Telefilm or Canada Media Fund or the broadcasters like your Rogers Fund, your Bell Media Fund, Shaw Rocket Fund, or getting all these tax credits. It's all about having a kind of a bundle of funding. So we have our crowdfunding money. We have our own money from picking up lots of pop cans in our spare time and selling crypto, you know, but just getting all these other grants and start out small. Like there are organizations like Alberta Media Arts Alliance Society. Full disclosure, I also serve on their board of directors. They have grants for $250, $500 that people can apply for if they want to develop a script. And it's just about becoming more familiar about these little grants. Then as you progress in your filmmaking journey and work on more elaborate productions, you want to scale up to the tax credits and major funding. Yeah. So how do you learn all about this different types of funding? Yeah. Well, you can talk to me. So that's a start. But you want to network, because if you, let's say you move to Edmonton and you don't know anyone and you're brand new and you want to get involved in feature filmmaking, make sure you attend events with the Alberta Media Production Industries Association. Make sure you attend events with FAVA or Doc Alberta. I used to volunteer on the board of directors for Doc Alberta, or events with Edmonton Screen Industries Office, or make friends with local filmmakers, because most likely someone in the local filmmaking group has experience applying for the Arts Council grants, broadcaster grants, major funding from government bodies like Telefilm and Canada Media Fund, etc. You have to network, because we're all creative people. Yeah, we tend to work alone in our studios, basements, garages, home offices, but ultimately creating feature films or any art involves collaborating and meeting with other people who can help elevate your art or get it seen.
I was always curious though.
Yeah.
You know, someone who might be an introvert, and there are a lot of introverts in this industry, right? And they have a great story and they want to communicate this story, but
Sure.
you know, I think the first thing that they do, well, I know several people, even myself, is, you know, grant funding for film, and I'm Googling this, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But like, is there a resource list of you know, all possible grants, or is there some kind of thing without having to kind of sift through the internet and see what's, you know, trying to?
Yeah, that's actually great. I'm really glad you asked that, because how do you learn about all these grants and opportunities? Sign up for every newsletter from the organizations I just mentioned. So I mentioned FAVA, AMPIA, ESIO, Telefilm, and there's Canada Media Fund, and every film organization will have some sort of newsletter. You want to sign up for that, because then they'll announce funds. You know, whether it's to like TELUS STORYHIVE is a great example. If you sign up for TELUS STORYHIVE, you'll get all these emails saying apply for video podcasting grant, or apply for documentary grant, or music. I don't know if they still do music videos or short film grants, but every time they announce their program, they'll announce, you know, the application intake opens on this date and here's a deadline. And there's also a lot of, for those of viewers who are from the BIPOC community. There's a lot of great programs for people who are BIPOC, so visible minority, Indigenous, people of color. So myself, I've been really fortunate to have a lot of fellowships this year, especially the Netflix Banff Diversity of Voices Initiative, where I got to attend the Banff World Media Festival. So that was a great experience with professional development, networking. And right now I'm doing a professional development program through the Real World Screen Institute.
Cool. Yeah.
So learning all about tax credits and different funding and a lot of legal and business affairs stuff. So definitely take advantage of those training opportunities. And there's a lot of opportunities like grant funding workshops that you can take. Because, you know, grant funding is not something where you can just wake up and Google it and then you spend 8 hours a day for a week applying for grants. There's kind of like a strategy and best practices almost. And, you know, like writing grant applications, it's kind of like going to the gym. Like it requires a lot of, or like anything in life, any skill, it requires a lot of practice. It requires a lot of commitment and discipline, because you got to sit down and make sure you have the space and time to write these grants. And because, they're adjudicated by many other people. They might be adjudicated by your peers, but start off with the smaller grants and work your way up as you develop and get more advanced and progress. Work your way up to the larger grants. It's kind of like starting a business, right? Yeah. Like you don't wake up and start a multi-million-dollar business unless you're from a very wealthy family or you're well connected and can find investors. No, you start off with a small business. So like all businesses start out small, like, you know, Microsoft and Apple started out with a handful of people, and now they're these huge multinational conglomerate organizations. Yeah, same thing with film. You start out with a short film, whether that's a 48-hour film challenge or a 1-minute film. FAVA has got a minute film festival, so enter that, and then you work your way up to bigger, more elaborate projects. So for applying for grants or learning how to write them, like you said, it really is about putting in the reps, right? Putting in the reps, attending on, you know, grant writing workshops. Yeah, and a lot of them are often free or very low cost. To attend. Gotcha. Yeah, or surround yourself with people who have filled out grants and have been successful. Ask them for help, because ultimately, people are very experienced, and once you get the hang of writing grants, then it becomes easier with each and every grant, because they often ask for the same thing, like your tombstone information, like your name and birth date and address, and then with a lot of the arts council grants, they'll often ask for stuff like, okay, what is your artist vision? What is your intent? What is your project about? What is your experience? Attach your latest CV and resume.
Yeah.
Can you demonstrate how you've been active in the industry? So myself, because I work a full-time public sector job and serve in the military, the only thing I could list was all the projects I volunteered on.
Yeah.
But I also spent a lot of time volunteering on a lot of board of directors in the film, media, arts, nonprofit industry. So I listed that down, and I'm like, okay, even though I've never really worked professionally on a full-time basis, I have volunteered my time and learned about the industry through these board of directors and getting involved in volunteering for different organizations.
Yeah.
So try to leverage as whatever experience you have, whether it's working on a short film or volunteering, everything counts.
Yeah.
And there's many pathways to the industry.
Gotcha. Producing and
Sure,
your role
yeah.
as a producer.
Exactly.
Can you explain to people, maybe, because, especially on indie films, you got to wear multiple hats.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially on a smaller team, everyone, you might be craft services, you might be producer, you might be a gaffer, working on lighting, whatever it is. But let's talk about producing specifically.
Yeah.
What is the role of a producer, and what are the typical roles and responsibilities for those?
Yeah.
For that title?
Thank you for that question, because I get that question asked a lot, especially from friends and family who aren't involved in the film industry and they have no clue how it works. A lot of people think that I was the director on Skinamarink or that I was the writer. And I'm like, no, that's Kyle Edward Ball. You can Google that. There's been thousands of articles written about him.
Yeah.
Well, what does a producer do? And I guess in the most basic definition is finding the resources. So the money, the support, and that can include there's different types of producers too. So there could be like line producers, executive producers, and just producers. But yeah, definitely gathering all the resources, finding the cast and crew.
Yeah.
It could be things like a lot of executive producer credits. We have a few executive producer credits on Skinamarink. Those are different people in the community who are able to help us out, whether that was giving us money for our crowdfunder to they were able to help promote the film by getting the film into film festivals, or they were able to help get the film distributed. So they were given a producer credit. But yeah, myself on Skinamarink, I put in some of my own funding and gave Kyle some, resources. Like I loaned my family's CRT television that we were about to throw out to the eco station because it was old and heavy, and we moved on to flat screen TVs. Loaning props. And I remember when Kyle needed help getting to Fantasia, I helped fund that trip. And that was a trip of a lifetime because it was a world premiere, and it allowed him to meet with sales agents, distributors, journalists, festival programmers, people who could help elevate the film and take it to the next level. That's what a producer does. They help find the funding and resources and supports, and they deal with a lot of things like business affairs, legal matters, financial matters. Because when people think about filmmaking, people think about what happens behind the camera. So the writers, the directors, the cinematographer, or what happens in front of the camera. So being a performer, actor, actress, background performers, extras. And people often think about what happens during principal photography, so the actual shooting of the film. And what a lot of people don't think about is, okay, that's all great, that's all sexy, that's exciting. But in reality, 50, 70, maybe 90% of filmmaking is what happens in the background. So you have people who are the crew members, like hair and makeup and grip and electrical and craft services, people who are props, set master, set decorators, etc. So you have a whole army of crew members, but a lot of it is what the production team does. So depending on what kind of production, let's say you're doing a documentary series, a docuseries, you might have people who are working out scouting locations, and they're trying to secure shooting locations, getting permissions from property owners, business owners on where to shoot, making sure that the clearances are put in place and all the paperwork. And then the producer has to get funding and apply for grants and tax credits. So dealing with all that paperwork. Downstream, maybe promoting the film. So talking to the media, which I did a lot last year. Something I never really imagined I'd be doing. But if you want to get your film out there and promote it, you gotta
put yourself
talk to people.
out there.
You can't be in your basement alone posting on social media. Well, that helps too. But yeah,
did you guys do a social media campaign, like paid ads to promote it?
No.
No,
I'll tell you why. Because I'll give everyone the Reader's Digest story. So how did Skinamarink take off? So what happened is, so the film premiered July 25th, 2022 at Fantasia. It was a modest screening. There's maybe about 60, 80 people in attendance. And we thought, this is as good as it gets. This might be our only screening. Aside from renting a movie theater to show it to friends and family back in Edmonton. And so what happened, a lot of festivals picked up the film because to promote the film, you have to show it in other festivals too, so that maybe there'll be a distributor who will pick it up, or a broadcaster, whoever. Skinamarink toured a few festivals in Europe and North America, and everything was great until maybe the first week of November 2022, when there was a Spanish festival. They had great intentions. They were streaming the films at home for people to watch, because we were still kind of in that COVID era. And a great idea. A lot of festivals were doing it at that point. What happened, though, is their third-party provider that was hosting the films on a server got hacked, and those films ended up getting leaked. So entire files online that people could download. And we know this because we have a younger friend who has a Plex server, and he could see all the servers that were hosting Skinamarink files for people to download. And there's dozens and hundreds. And it's really hard to get it removed. It's like getting pee out of a swimming pool.
So it wasn't only your film, it
was other people's films. Fortunately, though, in August of 2022, right after the film premiered, the sales agent was able to negotiate a deal with AMC. So the makers of The Walking Dead and Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul,
some other TV shows that are newer, but I don't watch TV, so I can't remember. We had a distribution broadcast agreement in place where AMC, their subsidiaries are IFC Films. And then they also own streaming services. So AMC Plus is kind of their main big streaming service for all their TV shows and movies. And then Shudder. Shudder's focus on genre horror films, primarily horror. And Skinamarink was able to become a Shudder original. But what happened with that Spanish film festival is, the film got leaked. Skinamarink had favorable reviews and a great reputation at these festivals. So people started pirating Skinamarink and sharing it and watching it, because the only way you could watch Skinamarink was to go to a festival. But not festivals can be really expensive and difficult. You have to live near or around or have the money to go to a film festival to watch a movie like Skinamarink. So people started sharing it because they didn't have access to it. And then what happened is a lot of the TikTok horror influencers started hyping up the film. Some influencers were talking about how it was the scariest film, most traumatizing film that they've ever seen. And controversy reads a lot of attention. And I think in the first week of November, or in November we had 9.45 million mentions on TikTok.
Wow.
And that was almost 2 years ago. I don't know how many mentions now. And because it was TikTok, that's spread like wildfire to other social media platforms like Reddit, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, other social media platforms.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it on a Chinese website.
Yeah.
Skinamarink was being
On a China.
they had the trailer for Skinamarink. It was really bizarre. I'm like, wow. So yeah, because it went viral on social media, and because other horror films, the most notable one was probably Terrifier 2, another low budget horror film that made millions at the box office on a very small budget, and other horror films like Smile did really well in theaters, and that was by one of the big studios. I can't recall. I think it was Paramount, or maybe it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting story on just how it, the story of, or just the background of kind of how it got out there.
Yeah.
I mean, reading the articles online, I knew the Skinamarink was leaked, but to what extent? Yeah, I didn't know, and I find that very interesting. And just kind of you breaking down kind of how it just spread like wildfire. I think it's a good. I think it's good for the viewers to know as well too, just on how like a small thing can just turn into a big thing and just expand and and explode.
Yeah, and we also received very polarized reviews. So there's people who they love the film, it resonated with them, it had a meaningful impact on their life, and now they're motivated to make a feature film themselves. Then people who they didn't get it, or people who absolutely hated the film. They gave it 0 out of 10 or a negative 100 out of 10. They despise it, and that's okay. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, and the movie won't work for. It's kind of like food, right? Like you can't like every single piece of food. So I think having polarized reviews and opinions of the films, it really motivated and encouraged a lot of people. Oh, I've heard of this film, $15,000 Canadian film, premiering at my local multiplex in the US. Like there were multiplex chains that were playing Skinamarink. Like I remember going to a friend's wedding in New York City, December 2022, and I went to a multiplex near Times Square in New York, and when I saw the upcoming films on their kiosk, I'm like, oh, holy crap, Skinamarink is playing at the theater in Times Square.
Crazy.
In New York City. And there are a lot of, Skinamarink placed number 11 on the US box office when it premiered.
Oh, wow.
And the Americans know how to promote a film and put bums in seats.
If the film wasn't leaked, what do you think the trajectory of Skinamarink would have been?
I always think about this question because it does feel like I'm living in this alternate reality where we never envisioned the film taking off. But I think the film would have still been distributed in theaters. I think we would have got maybe a limited release. So a limited release is less than 600 theaters. We would have had maybe a premiere in New York and a premiere in LA and a premiere in Edmonton for kind of a homecoming premiere for the cast and crew and people in the local community. And maybe that would have been it. Maybe we would have just played at what they call the art house repertory theaters that play the independent films, foreign international films, art house experimental films, older films. Maybe it would have just been seen at places like the Alamo Draft House, or here at Edmonton, the Metro Cinema at the Garneau Theater, who's also been a great supporter. They had over 10 screenings. So in that alternate reality, we would have had a more, I don't want to call it a stereotypically Canadian approach to distribution and exhibition of films. There have been some great Canadian films that had astronomical success, and Canadian films that unfortunately they barely put a dent even in the local domestic box office. So
okay.
I'm not too sure about that. I'd like to think that we're living in the best outcomes reality right now, and it's all because we talked to Kyle, especially networked and met the right people at the right time in history who could elevate and bring the film to the next level.
And I guess it's not best to think about the what ifs, and it's more like, hey, this is the cards we were dealt with, and you just deal with the present, right?
So that's right. Yeah. Like we didn't have the best hand. There's a lot of rejection of the film. Kyle did approach sales agents and distributors in Canada. A lot of them who didn't return his phone calls, or they didn't reply to their emails. Some who blocked Kyle's email.
Oh, dang.
address. And I'm sure they're kicking themselves now. But hey, if you want to help out with my next project, then we'll talk this time.
So let's bring it back to you mentioned the term gatekeepers. So you funded the film through whatever means. You developed the film. You have a finished product. Now, who are these gatekeepers, and how does someone figure out how to, I guess, best network with these gatekeepers?
Okay, like it might be possible to make a film alone, but it's very difficult and time consuming. So I guess there's different. Everyone has a different definition of gatekeepers. I'd like to think that the first people are your friends and family, because you're pitching Skinamarink to friends and family, especially for crowdfunding or support or borrowing props or their time or services. So those are the first gatekeepers. Kyle turned to a really good friend, associate producer, John Kamesh. Want to give a big shout out to him. He was the first person to watch Skinamarink outside of Kyle and his partner. He saw a rough cut and gave him some feedback. So friends and family are your first gatekeeper. Is this a film that's worthy of their attention, something that people will watch. And John gave some great feedback that shaped and molded what Skinamarink ultimately became. And then we met with another local producer who gave us some great advice on getting the film into festivals. So people in the local community as well. But your gatekeepers, I mentioned previously, the festival programmers, because Skinamarink was rejected by 2 programmers, and it took a 3rd programmer to finally get it programmed. And that's because the sales agent intervened. So he was that sales agent was really helpful in helping the film get programmed at a festival, because I gave the film more legitimacy, especially with potential distribution opportunities and broadcast agreements with AMC, for instance. And then, ultimately the consumers are gatekeepers, right? So, is this a film that people will want to watch in theaters? And when a film premieres in theaters, it gives it more legitimacy, because when it premieres online in the streaming world, because Skinamarink is on most of the major video on demand services like your Amazon Prime Video and Apple TV, and as well as AMC Plus and Shudder. People are like, this is a film that I've heard so much about. It was showing in my local theater. This is a film I'm going to watch. Because, the bitter reality is, if a film went straight to video or straight to streaming, right, people may still watch it. There's been a lot of successful, hyped, well-known films that premiered, that went straight to streaming, especially in our post-COVID era. But having a film that premiered in theaters also encourages people, hey, people paid money to watch this in theaters. Maybe this is worth my time watching on whatever streaming service. And then, consumers are the ultimate gatekeeper, because ultimately it's about putting bums in seats and people paying for tickets, and giving the film their undivided attention, because they worked hard for their money and they want to show their patronage, support, appreciation for the film.
Gotcha.
Okay. And of course, like, I guess, like, in the current context is, convincing funders. So your government agencies, your broadcasters, equity investors, to invest and believe in your project, and then major production companies, because I'm finding that as I attend these markets, I just came back from the Fantasia Frontiers market. Met with a lot of, as I keep mentioning the same people, the sales agents, the distributors, broadcasters, exhibitors, festival programmers. Those are your prospective supporters, but also your gatekeepers. You have to convince them, hey, this is my production company is worthy of your investment and your time and effort and support to make this next project. Invest in my production company, invest in my production.
Gotcha. So would you recommend someone then, I guess starting out, obviously, the consumer, the investors, but then that next level of sales agents, distributors, like, would you suggest individuals to start networking with sales agents first?
Yeah.
Or distributors?
Or
like, what's the natural flow or hierarchy?
It's really great that you asked this question, because when I was at Fantasia Frontiers Market a few weeks ago, one of their panel discussions was, is it important first to get a sales agent or a distributor? I think the most important thing, and this is something that I wish I learned like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, is network. And you don't have to go to these big festivals like cons or Berlinale or American Film Market. If you have the money and time, that's excellent. Go. Unfortunately, we didn't have the money and time, and nor expertise, nor experience, or even the credibility to go to these big festivals. Are really expensive and time consuming. But I think what may have helped Skinamarink early on, especially with getting Canadian sales agents and distributors on board, is you have to attend these markets so that you are known to these sales agents and distributors and other festival programmers. Because what I've learned a lot about producing and having a feature film made, a lot of it is networking and politicking. So you have to have some sort of rapport and establish relationship. Like it doesn't mean you have to be best friends and hanging out with all these different people all the time on a regular basis. But are you a nice person? Are you easy to work with? Are you approachable? And you're going to meet all these people, because a lot of these markets have these kind of round tables where people sit around a table and they meet the decision maker. So sorry, maybe decision maker is a better term than gatekeeper, but they can be used interchangeably. So did you meet that decision maker? Did they get to know you? Did you meet for coffee or cocktails or some networking event? All these markets have networking social events afterwards, parties, so that when it comes time, you need to find a sales agent or a distributor. You can approach them. Hey, my name is Edmon. We met at Fantasia or TIFF or Atlantic International Film Festival market. I'm looking for a sales agent. I think my project would be best suited for your company to distribute and to market in other territories. So being known to those people, and because unfortunately when Skinamarink was made, we didn't know people other than people in the Edmonton community. And talking to people in your local community is okay, but it can only get you so far. You have to attend these markets and get to know other people. The decision makers, because that's where they go, right? And they can help you. But other than that, it's hard to get into these markets too, because you need what they call industry accreditation. You need to demonstrate that you're actively working in the industry. Sometimes they ask for a broadcast credit. Like I applied to the Atlantic International Film Festival Partners Co-Development Co-Financing Market, and they asked for a broadcast credit. So I put down Skinamarink. If you don't know anyone, start off with people in your local community as best as you can, because people will know about distribution and marketing your film. Start off local and build your way to these markets. And there's different programs too that you can apply to help get yourself to these markets, because that can be a challenge unto itself.
So when you guys were pitching Skinamarink, kind of, I guess from your experience, I guess what is the best structure, or like what makes a good pitch? Pitch.
This is an entire great question. This could be an entire workshop. What makes a great pitch? I'm not the greatest expert on pitching, but there are lots of resources out there on the internet. But I think it dwells down to is it a pitch that people understand? Because there's different types of pitches. So in the context of a film market where you're trying to get development and financing support, a pitching may be a formal presentation where you have a slide deck, like a PowerPoint presentation with visual images and text and maybe videos. And then you're in front of an audience of decision makers giving your pitch. And these could be, because I saw this at Fantasia where they have an entire day of pitching where each team has about like 10 minutes to pitch.
Yeah.
And these are people who spent months and hundreds of hours preparing their pitch materials and constantly rehearsing the most polished pitches I've ever seen. Yeah. And it's competitive to get into these pitching competitions.
Yeah.
And so like I think, and this is just for the purposes of time and for your viewers, but do you have a story that's relatable? Poverty and inequality.
So having a relatable story is
exactly
one of the points to having a successful pitch. What are some of the other elements?
Having a pitch that you can understand too, because I've taken courses where people are intelligent, brilliant people in their professional lives, very well spoken.
Yeah.
And then they give their pitch, and it could be like an entire page. And then I'm like, did they just pitch an essay or their PhD dissertation? Which it sounds great from an intellectual standpoint, but I don't understand what they were pitching at all. And it was really hard for me to follow and understand. Yeah. But I found the best pitches were I understood what the pitch was. The story resonated with me. The characters were relatable. And it was simple and easy to understand. Yeah. But like, who was the most passionate? Yeah. Because it really shows who was best prepared, who really believed in their idea, who was most passionate, as opposed to people who, like everyone was well prepared, but it seemed like some people were just reading a script, or just they had a million things on their PowerPoint slide. Yeah. Or I'm just scratching my head. What was that pitch idea about? Yeah. And there's different pitches, as I said, because there's also when you fill out these applications for funding, they often ask for a synopsis. Yeah. So that could be 400 words or more, or a log line. Yeah. So a log line is really like one sentence. What is your film about? What is the story about? And that's what you'll read about when you're on your streaming services. Oh, what's this film about? And then you have a short description. Yeah. Or the elevator pitch. So let's say you're at Banff World Media Festival, and someone from Universal Studios or Paramount's high-level executive, a decision maker, you're at a roundtable discussion or in an elevator, and you have an idea to pitch. What is your 15, 30-second, 1-minute pitch? Yeah. So, yeah.
No, that's all good, man. No, right on. Okay, so Skinamarink grossed in just over $2 million in revenue on a $15,000 budget. Did you guys actually, what was the actual cost? Were you guys over budget, under budget for the film? And by how much?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the initial Seed and Spark crowdfunding campaign only yielded about just over $8,400 Canadian. And then the rest of the $15,000 funding, which is more, I don't want to call it a marketing gimmick, but I think it was something that was reported in the media because it's an estimate, right? Yeah. It's not like a finite number. It costs exactly $15,000. And what's interesting, it's a number that's often been repeated in hundreds, thousands of media reports, but they never mentioned if it was Canadian
or US dollars.
US dollars, because if it was US dollars, then maybe it would have been
20 grand.
Yeah,
Canadian.
20, whatever the exchange rate is these days. So a lot of it was in-kind support. Yeah. And what in-kind support, for those of your viewers who are unfamiliar, pretty much donated time, donated effort, donated resources. So as I mentioned, our DOP, the director of photography, Jamie McRae, he had access to all the filmmaking equipment. So we shot it on Sony FX6 cameras. He provided all the sound equipment and all the other production gear, like lighting equipment, audio recording equipment, lots of C stands for mounting the lighting gear, sandbags, all that sort of stuff, right? That all costs money to rent or buy. We had complimentary access to that thanks to Jamie, and thanks to Faba. So they're a huge supporter and help of the film, and that's why I often mention them in interviews. But yeah, a lot of the props were loaned for free, so we didn't have to rent or buy props. We might have, you know, every now and then we might have had to go to the dollar store and buy little things, but location was free because it was Kyle's child parent home, and of course, we put in extra money. So myself to fund the trip to Fantasia and finding that little $500 grant from Ampia. So it's really hard to say. Like we didn't really have much of a budget.
But did you guys actually like track that stuff? So even like the in-kind stuff, like was that tracked? Because
that was more of an estimate.
So it would have been a good
people's time and resources.
So it would have been I guess it would have been good practice to even track the in-kind. So to make a film like that for just information purposes, what do you think it would have cost you if none of that stuff was free?
Ooh, geez. Okay, if we were tracking every single resource and like equipment and props and people's time and efforts, probably a lot more than $15,000. But $15,000 is kind of the estimate that we use. Like, so you know,
with the in-kind stuff,
if we had to rent the cameras, so cameras are really expensive to rent. And buy. So, you know, I think Kyle kind of had an estimate. Okay, it would have cost this much for the cameras and lighting gear. Also, we used non-union performers. One of them is a union performer now.
Okay.
Dolly Rose recently got her ACTRA membership. So congratulations, Dolly.
Right on.
So we paid them honorariums. And they weren't, you know, making tens of thousands of dollars. But they received an honorarium for their time. And Kyle made sure that all the cast and crew was paid. They weren't getting paid like Hollywood rates because we were a small indie peanut-sized production. But I would like to think that Skinamarink was cost effective. But there's also a lot of sweat equity because Kyle, he struggled. Like he was on a leave of absence from work, and then later on he worked a minimum wage job doing data entry and was laid off and was on a EI to help him, tide him over. So, but he had a very supportive partner and family and friends to help him out. But he put in hundreds, thousands of hours editing Skinamarink on his own, on his little gaming laptop. Where he did the edit, the sound mixing, visual effects, with that color grading, everything he did on his laptop. And a lot of people, other people put in a lot of sweat equity. Doing other stuff. So when the film launched, I remember trying to, I had to help plan the premiere, round up all the cast and crew, speak to the local national media, and then associate producer John Kamesh and other people in the cast too. We all did our best to talk to whoever. So whether that was a small college newspaper to national media, a lot of the cast talked to.
So it was a huge group effort.
It was a team effort. It was a team effort, and like unfortunately we didn't track every single hour. Like I remember doing interviews last year. After my work hours or during my lunch break, whenever I could, to try to promote the film. So there's a lot of unpaid work to promote the film on the part of the cast and crew.
I guess it'd be pretty difficult to look back now and try to put an estimate to it. But I think it's also really important for individuals that say, hey, look, this is my estimate to my goal to produce this film from start to finish, from pre-production, post. Right. And then is your project going to be, because you have to learn how to forecast, right? Like,
yes,
if it's going to be a multi-month project, you're going to have to be like, hey, what's my cash flow? Like,
your burn rate, right?
Exactly.
Like, how much money do you have to sustain your business to keep operating? Because, like the bitter reality, filmmaking is a business, especially feature film. How much money do you have available to sustain yourself as a person? Because ultimately you have to put bread on the table, pay bills, put food on the, provide for your family members.
Yeah. And so a lot of people are going to do whatever it takes to finish the project. And, some people might prolong it and eventually just give up on the project, right? And so learning how to forecast, learning how to budget, and then being resourceful, like you mentioned earlier. Can I get locations for free or minimal cost, right? Can I work out honorarium? I can't even pronounce the word.
Yeah, that's right.
It's my accent. Honorariums? No.
Close enough. Yeah, honorariums. There you go.
Honorariums. But so learning how to be resourceful, right? And I think it's gonna be very key because I think worst thing is starting a project. Not knowing where the money's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. It can be scary.
It can be scary, right?
Yeah, because Skinamarink came very close to having something that we could just show to friends and family, that we could upload to YouTube for the world to see for free too. Yeah. And it just depends on who you talk to, what decision makers, what gatekeepers, who helped elevate the film, and it ended up becoming this weird art house experimental film that ended up getting theatrical distribution and was heavily commercially exploited. Yeah. And had commercial success worldwide. Yeah. It depends on who you talk to too, because you could talk to the right people, and fortunately Kyle was able to talk to the right people at the right time in history. Yeah. Versus maybe the wrong people who could have taken the film and not done anything with it. Yeah. So when someone says, or a film has brought in $2 million in revenue, and I know it probably has to depend on the structure of contracts between every person involved, but when someone says, hey, this film brought in $2 million in revenue, what does that actually mean? Like, what is actually take home? What is your portion? And what's profits? And how does that get distributed to the team members, people involved? Right. Yeah. So that's a great question. A lot of people ask me like how much money did you make from Skinamarink? Yeah. And unfortunately, Skinamarink was licensed, but it wasn't a multi-million-dollar licensing agreement. It was probably, I would say, maybe in the mid 7 or mid 6 figure, or not even 6 figures, mid 5 figures. Yeah. So I can't really say the exact number because it's internal proprietary information. Yeah. But because we were, Kyle was an unknown filmmaker. Yeah. And a lot of people on the cast and crew didn't have much of a track record. I certainly didn't have much of a track record other than a TELUS STORYHIVE project and student films and short films made with friends. Yeah. You can't really command a lot of money when you're signing a licensing agreement to a distributor or broadcaster, or when you're trying to, there's a term, minimum guarantee, when you go out to market and you're trying to ask for a minimum guarantee to help produce your film. Yeah. And that's kind of the bitter reality when you're just starting out in the industry. Yeah. But because of the success of Skinamarink, it has unlocked a lot of doors, opened up a lot of doors for the cast and crew. So Kyle especially is known in the Hollywood circles, big and small production companies, and he's already started pre-production on his, or maybe late development. He's written a script. Okay. And yeah, he's trying to get his next film made. He has the support of Hollywood now, so he's graduated to the Hollywood system.
Yeah.
And bypassed the kind of traditional Canadian system of filmmaking. And for members of the cast, even though they were paid small honorariums, it's helped, I guess, increase their credibility, popularity on things like IMDb and social media. And some of them have gone on to get roles in other feature films.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So and for me personally, it's opened up a lot of doors. I was able to receive my first Arts Council funding a few years ago not a few years ago, a few months ago. Something I never imagined because I'm not a professional artist. I don't have a Bachelor of Fine Arts nor formal education or even steady work experience. But if someone like me can get an arts grant, how much more for other people?
For sure.
And it's opened up a lot of doors to fellowships in producing and attending these markets. I'm very fortunate to be attending 4 markets this year. And my fees for attending are covered. I just have to cover flights and accommodations and other expenses. But
so I think that's really important for individuals who, they're starting off. They got funding. They're going to produce a film, and they think they're going to make millions, right? Yeah. But I think the harsh reality is, it's really dependent on the decision makers, especially if you're unknown and you don't really have the experience. It's the the negotiation or the structure of the contract and what leverage you actually have, right? So I think that's a really important point for individuals to the harsh reality of the industry.
Yeah, kind of the bitter reality because Skinamarink is a very inspiring. I met with a distributor who it was kind of embarrassing. They talked about, but in a good way. They talked about how Skinamarink was a Cinderella story of an indie film that there's a lot of struggles and roadblocks that eventually became popular and made money. Which is very rare for a lot of Canadian indie films of that $15,000 level. Sorry, you'll have to remind me of the question again.
No, I think it was just more of the comment of what you mentioned. I think it's really important for individuals to know that if they have a project, they got the funding, they produced the film, and they think now, hey, I got to go find these decision makers.
That's right.
Which are the sales agents, the distributor, and whatnot. But they're doing this maybe to in the hopes of making money. In the hopes of
everyone wants a film that's successful. Ultimately, you want a film that people will watch. People will pay tickets, or they'll buy it or rent it, or they'll go to a screening to watch it. You want people to watch your film. But not to get everyone's hopes up, but it was a struggle to get Skinamarink made. You don't want to, especially since it's the arts, right? A lot of, it's great if it makes money, but there's, the film industry is also an industry of constant rejections and people giving you the cold shoulder, or people who won't give you the time of day for whatever reason. So, it's an industry of rejections and no's and doors being slammed in your face. That's kind of the bitter reality. But the more educated you get in producing and issues of legal and business affairs and film markets, and the more networking that you do attending, just starting off with local events or with local filmmakers and scaling your way up to the cons and Toronto International Film Festival and Berlinale and European film market, American film market. Get more educated and network and continue learning. It's a continuously changing, evolving industry.
Now, you brought up something earlier in regards to Kyle there that I thought was pretty interesting. He's now more exposed to the Hollywood market. as opposed to the Canadian market. What are the differences between the US and Canada market?
Sure. It's pretty easy. The US, we're a population of like 40 million people in Canada. Yeah, US, you have, I don't know the latest figures, but probably over 330, 350 million people. So economies of scale. And it is a much bigger, albeit more competitive industry in the United States. I think with Canada, we're very fortunate because we have a lot more government broadcaster support. So I keep on mentioning the provincial, national film and TV tax credits.
Yeah.
Kind of a more generous tax credit system compared to the United States. We have organizations like Telefilm. So Telefilm is sponsored by the government. They provide funding for commercial revenue generating films that can be exploited.
Yeah.
Theatrical, broadcast wise. So we have Telefilm Canada. There's not really a thing that exists in the United States like that. We have all these broadcaster funding, like I mentioned the Rogers Media Fund, Bell Fund, Shaw Rocket Fund. We have Canada Media Fund.
Yeah.
And then we have all these kind of professional development programs to help people, like the National Screen Institute. Myself, I'm partaking in Real World, and we're very fortunate to have a lot of organizations that help marginalize, underrepresented communities. A good example, Real World for BIPOC, and then we have BIPOC TV. We also have things like the Black Screen Office, the Indigenous Screen Office, organizations like Women in Film and Television in Canada. I think they also exist in the U.S. Lots of unions and guilds that offer a lot of professional development for their members to continually learn and educate and grow in their careers. So an ecosystem of broadcasters, government funders, nonprofit organizations, and industry trade organizations that can help people. And I'm sure they exist in the United States and other countries as well, but they seem more prominent. Like it's easier to get Arts Council government funding in Canada, whereas in the States, I'm sure they have their government fundings and foundations, and it might be more complex.
Yeah.
But in Canada, it's more accessible, at least.
Gotcha.
So
basically, the difference between Canada and US is a lot. You got more exposure.
Yeah.
In Canada, you got more, I guess, support.
That's right. Yeah. That's probably, and the experience will be different for everyone depending on what province. Because as someone who lives in Alberta, and this isn't to critique the Alberta government because I'm not here to talk politics, but Alberta, while it was the first Canadian province to introduce film and TV tax credits, there's a reason why the urban centers like Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, even Winnipeg have a more lucrative film industry than Edmonton. It's because the film and TV tax credits are much better, more lucrative, more generous. So they were able to have a better film TV tax credit program and build up their industries. Because if you go back in time to like the late 70s, maybe early to mid 80s, the place to make films was Edmonton. Like Edmonton gave birth to the National Screen Institute office. It used to be based here in Edmonton, and now that's in Winnipeg. We used to have a National Film Board office here as of a few months ago, but now that's been dissolved and been consolidated with offices in BC.
Was that the group located on White Ave there?
The National Film Board?
Yeah.
Or
actually, I don't even know where that was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know I think the Edmonton International Film Festival is based on White Ave.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at the wrong sign then. Yeah.
No worries. But companies, organizations are constantly changing offices.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna, and I don't know where this next line of questions is gonna go.
Yeah. And ask me the hard hitting, complex, most difficult questions because that's what people want to hear.
So like, you're a Filipino. right?
Yeah.
So like,
oh, really? Thanks.
yeah,
Did not know that. I'm joking.
personal color. Like,
Yeah.
what are your are you able to provide any feedback in regards to maybe has the color of your skin maybe affected you in any certain way to be involved in this industry? Like, have you experienced any roadblocks?
Yeah, because but before, right, I was very new to the industry. I didn't really know anyone or know anything.
Yeah.
But I found as I got more involved, I started volunteering with the board of directors of all these different organizations. I started going to more networking events. I started out going to free events.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to these markets. Yeah, like, no, don't get me wrong. I felt like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
Like I'm not someone of a big stature. You know, people are like, who is that 5'2" Filipino guy, you know, wearing a fedora at this party? Who is he?
Yeah.
And yeah, I really felt like a fish out of water because, you know, there's a lot of white people in the room and, you know,
Yeah.
it was definitely very nervous and nerve wracking. But I love everyone in the community and I've been very nice. And yeah, so, you know, don't get me wrong. Like I did feel nervous and I was very shy, maybe introverted and kind of a wallflower, just
Yeah.
kind of kept to myself. But now it's at the point where when I attend a local event,
Yeah.
I'm talking to so many people who know me and are high-fiving me or want to talk to me.
Yeah.
That I'm running out of saliva. Yeah, I run out of saliva. Like there's a few Edmonton screen industry events where I forgot to use a drink ticket because I spent so much time talking to people that I didn't have a time to get a
To get a drink.
free drink.
Yeah.
So I wasted some tickets and saved the ESIO money. But yeah, it's been great because you can really leverage that because I think it makes me more memorable.
Yeah.
So when I go to a market, like I'm going to TIFF and this IF Partners,
Yeah.
I'll probably be more memorable to people because there's not unless there's 100 other 5'2" Filipino fedora wearing guys in the room, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm probably more memorable. I'll stand out. So you want to use that to your advantage and be proud of who you are, your ethnicity, your heritage, your family, and be true to your community and the story that you want to tell.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
So yeah, and Filipinos are on the rise.
Yeah.
Like my family came here in 1975.
Yeah.
So almost 50 years. I've had family members who came here even earlier in the 60s and early 70s. But yeah, we're almost gaining critical mass. Like never in a million years would I imagine that there'd be a major Filipino fast food chain, Jollibee,
Yeah.
or Filipino food is now mainstream, at least in Edmonton. I went to a Shoppers Drug Mart and they had Longanisa and Tocino.
At the Shoppers Drug Mart?
Yeah,
Oh,
near
really?
my house. Maybe
Yeah.
there's a lot of Filipinos who live there.
Yeah.
That's something that you would only find at like Filipino specialty stores, which
Yeah.
used to be rare and now it's mainstream. And yeah,
Yeah.
the demographics of the country is changing. A lot of Filipinos are intermarrying.
Yeah.
And you know, we have a lot of multicultural blended families, people who are third generation and they have Filipino grandparents or an ancestor somewhere, people who are Filipino descent who don't look like they're Filipino.
So how has the Filipino community reacted or supported you in regards to, Skinamarink, for example?
I think they've been very receptive. Like I'm here on this podcast talking to my Filipino brother, so thank you. I was very fortunate to have an interview with the Philippine Arts Council, and that was published in a local Filipino prominent newspaper. And yeah, I've had a lot of Filipinos who've come up to me, and one gentleman who I've never met him before. I was giving a talk about Skinamarink on the eve before it premiered, and he came to me. He was a stunt performer, and he came up to me and he's like, "Yeah, I heard about Skinamarink. I heard about you, and I just wanted to come out to your talk to show my support." And I'm like, I was really touched by that because I was born and raised in Canada. and I'm pretty, people would describe me as maybe, to use a term colloquially, a banana.
Yeah.
So, or yellow, brown on the outside, white on the inside, because I was born and raised in Canada.
Yeah.
And it's really touching because I get people who are Filipino descent emailing, calling me, hey, or people of all cultures, Asian, Middle Eastern,
Yeah.
African, European,
Yeah.
all walks of life who are reaching out to me and say, hey, Edmon, can I meet you for coffee? Or Edmon, I need your advice. Or Edmon, I want to sit down and talk to you, etc. I'm really touched by that because before Skinamarink, people still met with me, but not at the level now. And I have an IMDb Pro account, so people are emailing from the United States and around the world asking me for advice. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. I have very limited experience. I can only talk from my experience, but this is what we did.
Yeah.
And here's my advice.
All right, let's talk about if you're able to talk about what are your current and upcoming projects that you're maybe excited about, that you're able to share.
Sure, yeah. I'm really excited, and I wish I had more time in my life to devote my undivided attention. But yeah, I continue to help with emerging filmmakers, student filmmakers, artistic experimental filmmakers, filmmakers from underrepresented, marginalized communities that have been ignored by the mainstream. People starting out in the industry, they don't have a clue or they're not as familiar, so they're asking me for advice. Yeah. So I'm helping on a few documentary projects. One project I've been consulting on is a project about asexuality and asexual individuals by a young up-and-coming documentary filmmaker. And then I'm helping another aspiring documentary filmmaker with his project about Indigenous artwork around Canada that's been kind of largely hidden or hasn't received a lot of attention, but there's a rich tapestry of history behind it. And another project that's a coming-of-age feature film story from another friend. And then with this other group of friends, I'm trying to help them tell their story, which can be best described as a Scottish, Gaelic-inspired, ecological folk horror film that deals with themes about industrialization, environmental destruction, a film from an ecological lens, but it's a period piece in the 1800s, shot in the Maritimes. At least that's a challenge of it. So a few exciting docu-series, documentary films, and feature films. And I'm still learning a lot. So I'm still doing as much professional development as I can. And there's a lot of great free resources and paid resources. I think one thing I can reassure your viewers, especially those who want to get into feature filmmaking, is even though you live in Edmonton, Alberta, or maybe you live in a small hamlet or village, like I have a friend who's from Fort Assiniboine, Alberta, a small hamlet of about 150 people. You are just as smart, intelligent, creative as people from LA, New York, Vancouver, Toronto, Winnipeg, Montreal. You are just as smart, intelligent, and gifted as those people. And what's really cool is you can create a film and have it seen worldwide right here in Edmonton. It's helpful to go to those larger, major urban centers as well. But we also live in a incredibly, thanks to information technology and communication like Zoom, you can collaborate with people all around the world. You can travel the world for work, but you can call Edmonton your base because, So, sorry, I want to say something very cliche.
No, do it, man.
But Edmonton's a great place to create films. It helps to travel and find opportunity elsewhere, but you can still make world-class work here. and have it seen all over the world. And you are just as smart and intelligent and gifted as anyone else, especially in Hollywood.
No, that's great, man. That's pretty deep.
Yeah, they just may have more money and deeper pockets and
I think
extensive resources and expertise. That's a major difference. But start out small.
Start off small, and I think that's great advice. And you know what? I think a lot of people, including myself, get stuck in the analysis paralysis kind of stage, right?
Analysis paralysis.
Where they're thinking too much in their head instead of actually just getting started. And you mentioned it, you got to put in the reps, whether it is just hitting the record button, whether it is just putting pen to paper and start writing your first line.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like once you write your first word on a piece of paper, you've already embarked on a journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not going to be a smooth journey unless you're rich and wealthy and you're the son of or a child of Steven Spielberg. But everyone has different circumstances and a journey in life, and there's different pathways and trajectories to get into the industry.
Edmon, again, thank you so much for taking part.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor and privilege, and I hope your frame by frame viewers get a lot of information out of it that's helpful.
So guys, if you guys have enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe to Frame by Frame and leave us a review. You can follow Edmon's work and updates on IMDb, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, that's Edmon from Edmonton. And thank you guys for tuning in into Frame by Frame. We'll see you guys on the next one.